So everyone talks about increasing engagement in courses, but what does that actually mean? Today, I'm breaking down what real engagement looks like and why it's so critical to course success. Who the hell am I? I'm Dr. Catrina Mitchum, and I have been designing and redesigning courses online for adults since 2009. So first, we're going to define what real engagement is. It goes beyond just showing up, right? And so we've got active engagement and we've got passive engagement. So passive is just watching the videos, reading the content without really engaging with it or applying it. And that still can be engagement, but what we really want is active engagement. And active engagement is when they're attempting to do the tasks. They're asking questions, they're applying concepts. They're really thinking about and doing the work. And so the engagement spectrum can kind of go from lurking, right, to leading. And different people are going to fall anywhere in that spectrum. But what you want to do is you want to look for helping folks move from the kind of lurking that we know doesn't quite get them to the goals that they're trying to achieve, to a more active engagement with the materials, with the course, with you, with others taking the course, depending on how you've designed it. So how do you find that out? You can look at things like participation. You can send engagement kind of activities and see if there's response. You can track progress, but it is hard to determine if that's more of the passive, like I'm watching the videos and not doing anything else, or if they're actually doing the things. And a lot of that comes down to design. You can design the elements that are typically passive to be more active. Okay, and so we also have, beyond active and passive engagement, we also have different types of engagement. And so we've got cognitive engagement, and we have emotional engagement, and we have behavioral engagement. Cognitive engagement is their mental investment. This is the showing up, the thinking, the things that are kind of harder to see, and that you'll need to design your course so that you can see that engagement a little bit. This is the critical thinking, the connecting of ideas, the things that lead to the aha moments, or actually the aha moments themselves. Emotional engagement is the investment, right? The feeling excited about it, the being motivated to do the things, feeling curious, feeling like they're moving forward, right? And so cognitive engagement and emotional engagement are actually pretty closely, all three of them are pretty closely tied together. If the emotional engagement is not there, the cognitive engagement is harder to do. There are very close ties to feelings and learning. And we know that cognitive and behavioral engagement is what together constitutes learning. And so that emotional engagement piece, even though a lot of people feel like it's not their responsibility as the course designer, it actually is. You can build things into the curriculum that help not play on someone's emotions, but help remind them, right? Why they're here, why they're doing this, and that why that you're helping them ground in can help them to continue to stay motivated, even when things feel hard, or when life gets in the way, or whatever the 80 million reasons are that they're stop engaging in your course. So the third type is behavioral engagement. And this is the completing of tasks, participating in discussions, taking action, submitting things, getting feedback, doing the actual work. These are the tasks and the work of the course. And so these things work together to create an actively engaged learner. So we have to have the emotional investment into doing the cognitive and behavioral work. So what does engagement actually look like? So this is asking questions, reaching out for clarification, things that go beyond the basics. When there's something that they don't understand or there's something that they need clarification on, actually asking for that help. Applying concepts in different ways to their specific situation, right? And so real learning is happening when we're taking the information and the activities that we're being given and we apply it to our own context. And if you have built a course, that is exactly what you want them to do, right? Because you want them to be able to reach the goals that they have set out in their own lives, in their own context, in whatever change it is that they're trying to make. Sharing right? And so when people are engaged in learning, they are wanting to share, they want to share their work, they want to share their progress, they want to share their successes, they want to, well, they may not want to share their failures, but I would suggest encouraging sharing their failures, because that failure is often kind of a linchpin point for learning something. What can we learn by this thing going wrong? That sometimes is the most exciting part about science and research, right? Is figuring out the thing that failed. Real engagement looks like connecting their real life experiences to the things that you're trying to teach them, the things that you're trying to get them to do. And it's consistency, right? Coming back and doing the thing and reaching the goal. And so all of these kind of real engagement activities are things that can be built into the design of the course. Your course can be designed to encourage all of these things. So, what engagement is it? We're going to talk about some myths around engagement. So, it's not high video watch time. Can watching the videos mean they're engaged? Yes. Does it mean they're paying attention? Does it mean they're actually getting the things out of the video that they need? This is why high watch time is not, it's just a checkbox. It's not a good sign of whether or not they're actually engaging and thinking about it critically. Things like likes or positive comments, which of course applies to social media, but that can also apply to your course. Like if your platform has a space where they can comment or like things, if they're kind of surface level, I'm not really sure that they're engaging with the class. Are they doing some things? Yes. Is it the kind of engagement that will get them to their goals? Possibly not. Our third myth is an important one, and that is that engagement looks the same for every course, and that's just not possible, right? There are a lot of things about the content and the goals that really need to drive what that engagement should look like. And assuming that you can just take one method or one strategy and put it in your course and call it good, that's a myth. It doesn't work that way. It really needs to be kind of bespoke to your course, your content, and what those goals are. My favorite myth is that technology and fancy features create engagement. And so having, kind of an interactive video, does that mean that perhaps they are paying a little closer attention to the video because they're going to have to click a button? Yes. Does it mean they're actually thinking about the concepts? That's debatable. You'd have to ask them, right? And so this idea that bells and whistles will create engagement, or things flying across the screen will create engagement, is just BS. Meaningful engagement requires thoughtful design decisions. Okay, so now that we have an idea of what engagement is and what engagement isn't, we're going to talk a little bit about why. Why does engagement matter? Number one is that it results in learning. So we don't want clients to just go through and check the boxes. That checkbox mentality isn't what creates learning. We want transformation or growth mentality. And that is what's going to help them actually reach the goals that they came to you for. And that's the thing that we all know is going to result in recommendations and them coming back to you for other services and all of the things that are beneficial of having a client that loves your work. So that checkbox mentality is sort of just coverage, right? Having kind of a general surface level knowledge of a thing versus a mastery of that thing, right? And so you need to kind of get into the nitty-gritty details of a thing in order to start mastering it, in order to start reaching those goals. And so that superficial engagement of those checkboxes leads to superficial results. They will not get to the results that they want, the results that you want. It'll just kind of feel empty. Engagement matters because there is a direct correlation between the goals and the results. Engaged learners remember more things. So sometimes part of our courses is about remembering information. And so when a learner is engaged with that information, they're not just consuming content, they're engaging with the content. And when they're doing that, they can build on skills, right? So they're engaging in content by reading it, understanding it, applying it, and then moving on to the next stage where they can build upon it. And that's where we start to see the outcomes that they're searching for. And this is why the design of the course is such an important part of creating that engagement, is because of the compounding effect over time of a course that takes a big goal or several big goals and breaks it down into smaller pieces that are easy to achieve and engage with. So what all of this means is they'll be successful, right? And you're creating this course or created this course because you want your clients to be successful because you give a shit about their success. And that kind of brings us to the next why, which is the impact on testimonials and referrals, which I've covered in several other videos at this point. Engaged learners can be more specific when they are giving a testimonial, and that's more compelling, right? So if you have a bunch of testimonials that are, Catrina was super fun to work with. Okay, great. That's fantastic. But what was super fun about it? What did I do to make it fun and easy? Those more specific, I got this, or this is exactly what I loved. Those are the things that are more convincing to other people. And when a learner or client is engaged in your materials, they have the capacity to be more specific. And all of this engagement that we're trying to build in, the emotional engagement, the behavioral, the cognitive, that all leads to an investment, right? So when we're engaged in things, we're invested in things. And when we are emotionally invested in things, we are more likely to talk about it positively. And that leads to referrals. It leads to course clients being able to go beyond it was good or even it was fantastic to it changed how I did it this way. It changed this for me, right? And so change is the reason why people buy courses. It's the reason they go back to formal education. It is the reason people invest in learning, is because they want something to change. And so if you can have a client who took your course and can say, it changed this for me, then it's more likely to be a testimonial or a referral that is useful to you because it's proof that the way that you're doing things is helping people make the changes that they want. Okay, so the next kind of why is related to that. So the reason why all of that happens, all of the positive and very specific referrals and how those can help, is because engaged learners or engaged clients perceive a higher value because they got what they came for. They got what they needed. They are satisfied with what they learned and applied and changed by taking your course. And those are the things that real engagement can create and that we can build into the design. And overall, that's what impacts your reputation, right? You don't want to become one of those people that ends up on a list on Threads of tell me the worst course you ever bought, right? I have seen them. They are long and ugly lists. So you don't want to build a course that puts you on one of those lists and ruins your reputation as a course creator, right? You're trying to build this business so that it's sustainable. This is about your success through their success. And then, kind of the last of the whys is about financial stability and how, this impacts future purchases of the clients that are taking the course and also future purchases from referrals and testimonials. Those are all things that are important and that impact your business, and kind of all of those whys have been leading up to that. It's going to impact your bottom line. Okay, so our third area is covering some design areas that can impact engagement. So things like the sequencing and the design of your content. And so I often refer to this as the learning journey, right? And so making sure we are doing progressive development of tasks and content, chunking things up, including stories and examples throughout, having variation. So not everything has to be a video. Not everything has to be a written response in a workbook, right? Changing things up to match what the goal is and how it's going to best help them get to that goal, so that the learning journey is something that can help them implement change. Another thing in design and sequencing is motivation to keep going. So having clear progress indicators, achievable milestones, celebrating, no matter how small those milestones are, celebrating them. Outreach when there are clients that have kind of fallen off, because no matter how well you design your course, life will happen. You are teaching adulting adults. And so having a mechanism that resparks their motivation built into your design is something that you can do. Another design area that can impact engagement is the activity structure and instructions. And so making sure instructions are clear and concise. Scaffolding them. So that's an educational term that I'm going to define for you. That means building up all of the smaller pieces that lead to this bigger goal. In your past educational life, you might have thought it was busy work, but that was your teacher actually doing good curriculum design, breaking things down into smaller pieces so it is not overwhelming. Another piece of activity structure is application. And so the scaffolding and chunking of things helps with the application. You could break it down into steps, right? So apply the content. And also time. And so this one isn't about having them finish in enough time. It is about leaving enough time for the activities to get done, right? The next area of course design that can impact engagement is community and social elements. And so this one really depends on what it is that you're teaching them. It depends on what it is you're willing to support. But there are certain things that are better when done with other people. And so trying to build in some options for community and social elements is something that can impact engagement. So things like social proof, being able to say, hey, look what I did, and have a bunch of people celebrate you. Being able to get feedback, being able to find mentors. And this is something that you can do within the course, right? So you can set up a system where maybe your beta testers become mentors the next time around. They perhaps get a kickback for everyone that comes in and they mentor, right? So you can start to build those things within the structure of the course. And then connection is the other one. And so this can be something that you can build in as kind of those check-ins that I talked about earlier. And those can be automated and then offer like, hey, if you're struggling, right? Or if there's something you want to share with me, submit it, right? Email me back. Submit your celebrations in this form. Like there's a lot of different ways that you can build in that feeling of community and connection without doing a lot of heavy lifting or without doing a twice a week, 1 hour long Zoom call, right? Those things aren't necessarily what creates the community and the social elements. You can teach an entirely asynchronous course. You can teach an entire course without being in the same place at the same time, even digitally, and you can do it well if you have a good course design. So the next design area that can impact it is feedback mechanisms. One, do you have any? And this is both feedback for you on the course and also places where you can offer them feedback. And this is another way that you can build that relationship, right? That through community without having to like be in a specific place at a specific time with outcomes that may or may not work. Is that feedback constructive? And then is it useful? And so those are the things to ask when you're thinking about building feedback in both for you and them to your course design. And the last one I'm going to talk about is one that can be a little bit difficult because there's not a whole lot we can control about this, but that is the interface and the user experience. And so a lot of that is dependent on the platforms that we choose, the technology that we choose. I always say the technology is the last thing you should pick. You should design your course around what you want it to be, what it should be, and then try to find something that will best fit. Sometimes that means cobbling things together. That tends to be what I do. But you want to make sure that the thing that you have or the design choices that you can make is that it's intuitive. It's easy to navigate because technology navigation can make or break whether or not somebody keeps going in your course. The visual hierarchy, and that's something that is easy to get lost in if there's a lot of stuff on the page, right? You want it to be, it's kind of related to navigation, but being able to very quickly pick out where you should be going next is important. And then the responsiveness. And so that's really just Is it working? Is it breaking? Do you have to switch technologies because there's constantly problems? So this series is going to get into all of the nitty-gritty details of increasing engagement. Don't want to wait that long? It's going to be a long series. Grab a strategy session, links in the description, and we can go over your specific engagement concerns. In the next video, we're going to dive deeper into those first 48 hours. Those first 48 hours after sign up are critical, and they set the tone for engagement throughout your entire course. So if it's not there now, it'll be there next week.